Alright, I love you, but be for real. That wasn't chemistry you were feeling. That was your attachment wound choosing chaos again. Your ex can be your next. You can heal, but love is not enough. You have to actually have the tools to act on that love. And we have someone here to help us with that. Before we get into it, like, subscribe, follow at I Love You But Podcast on Instagram, TikTok. I Love You But Be For Real on YouTube and Spotify or wherever you listen to your podcasts. So today's special guest was actually failing in his relationship. Self-claimed. I'm not being rude. He's self-claimed. Failing in his relationship. There was a restraining order in the marriage, and now it's healthier than ever because he was able to find the attachment theory and learn tools on how to actually bring his marriage back to a healthy place by healing childhood wounds, subconscious habits, thoughts, beliefs, not just manifesting, oh, I want a better partner, I'm manifesting the marriage of my life. There was actually tools, things that were used to get his marriage back on track, and he helps other people do the same now. Welcome, Bryan. Pew, pew, pew. My love.
Well, thank you so much for that introduction. That's pretty awesome. I love it. And you're so right. I love you, but right. And that is so true because love isn't always enough. And that's unfortunate. And that's something that a lot of us unfortunately learn the hard way. And we learned that we don't have the tools and the skills necessary to have really good, healthy relationships. And it's really not our fault that we didn't learn that, but it is our responsibility to now take the reins and learn it now so that we don't have to have those problems in the future. And my wife and I went through a pretty rough time, and that's kind of how we learned a lot of this stuff. And I was failing. That is a self-proclaimed fail, big time. I absolutely accept that. And but it was through that journey that has brought me here today. And the information I want to share with you and your audience today, I'm excited to share because it has been a game changer for us, and I'm hoping it'll be a game changer for some of your listeners as well. So thanks for having me on the show today, Angie.
Perfect. Thank you for coming. Before we get into some of the details, when you look back now, what do you think is one of the key big things that people get wrong about why relationships fall apart?
Yeah, I would say the number one for me is that we're always blaming the other person, right? And we always think it's their fault. It's them, and it's really not. We have to look at ourselves and how we're showing up in this relationship and take ownership of our side of things. Now, if we are showing up really healthily and we're really great at communicating and learning the boundaries and all this other stuff, if we're doing everything just right, then we may not have a great partner. But typically speaking, usually we have some issues to really look at ourselves and we're not showing up properly. But it's really hard to take ownership of that until things sometimes, like my wife and I, things get really to a critical stage and it, you end up in a really breakup in a bad situation, divorce or broken up and stuff like that. Only then sometimes that you're able to look at it and then maybe fix it. But unfortunately, if you could stop the train wreck and look at yourself along the way, you're gonna be able to heal and not hopefully not get to that critical stage. That's what I hope to try to help people do. Avoid that critical stage, avoid the breakup. But yet it does start with taking ownership of your side of the relationship.
And I feel like in today's time with like TikTok and Instagram, it's so easy to shift the blame to the other person because we're all learning like therapy talk, therapy speak, and like quick, easy words. I see a lot of people say, my ex was a narcissist, or my baby father was a narcissist, whatever. And it's like, sometimes that may be true, right? Like it is a real disorder that exists in the world, but it's like there was no, in these like quick short clips, there's no ownership of, yes, my ex was doing 1 2 3, but I also contributed in 1 2 3 way. So now we're all kind of validating each other and like, oh my god, yes, my ex is a narcissist too, like blah blah blah. And it's like we're kind of like losing that I guess the point to be able to reflect on ourselves in just quickly, easily validating each other from short clips and TikToks. So that's kind of like my take on that.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. I'm like, there's actual, like, I think us learning about therapy and these different attachment styles and tools is important, but you can't use it to explain away your own involvement in the relationship. And I think people would take these things and they'll be like, my ex definitely had an anxious attachment style. That's why he da 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 da. And it's like, sure. But then also, what was your attachment style?
Yeah, yeah, and that's so true. We have to look at ourselves. Yes, it's good to get the information, understand our partners, and maybe what they were, the angle they were coming from a little bit. That can be helpful to us. But if we're truly trying to have healthy, good relationships, then at the end of the day, it always comes back to us. What am I doing? How am I showing up? What can I change to actually have a healthy, good relationship? And stop pointing the finger at this person. I always say, a lot of times people say it's, well, I'm just reacting to their actions. I'm reacting. It's because of them that I did this. Well, the key word there is you're still acting. All right. It's acting. It's your actions. And so we have to take ownership, whether it's an action or a reaction, it doesn't matter. It's still an action. And that's what we have to start taking, ownership of, and start to figure out, why am I doing this? Why am I, why did I choose a narcissist if you chose a narcissist? Why were you in a relationship with a narcissist to begin with? What is it about you that chose that type of person? And so on and so on. So we just have to really look at ourselves. And it's so hard because we're wounded. A lot of times we just have a hard time accepting that maybe it is our fault. We have some wounds. It's hard to admit that we may have the issue, or at least some issues, right? And so it's just easier to not do that, and obviously just blame everybody else and everything in the world as to why we're not able to have good relationships. There's no good boyfriends out there. All the good guys are taken. All this other stuff. It's like, no, that's not true. There's lots of good people out there. I promise you, as you continue to get better and heal and learn this stuff, you will start to attract healthier, better partners, and all of a sudden you'll find yourself in a really good relationship. It just takes some time and practice, but you can get there.
You're hitting the things that I keep hearing of, like, and I'm hearing it from both sides. I'm hearing it from men and women, like,
Sure.
oh, none of the men on the apps are serious. But then I hear the same thing from the men. And I'm like, it looks like that Spider-Man meme where everyone's like pointing at each other,
Yeah.
like, you,
I like, I mean, that's right.
I'm like, someone here, because I'm like, I'm hearing from both parties the same thing. So
Yeah.
something's not adding up. The math is not mathing.
Yeah.
In your relationship, in your marriage, could you take us to the moment where you realize, like, this might be over, this isn't gonna work, and what was happening inside you at the time from your perspective?
Yeah, I mean, things really started to devolve in 2024, early February-ish in 2024. My wife asked me to see a therapist because we had another fight about my son and some parenting styles. She challenged me to see a therapist through that, which I agreed to at that point. I said, fine, I'll see a therapist, but I also challenge you to see a therapist because in my mind, of course, she was the one with all the issues. And then, of course, in her mind, I was the one with all the issues, right? So she's challenging me to see a therapist because she thinks it's all on me. And I'm thinking it's all on you. You need to see a therapist. And that was the start of this real journey, if you will. She started seeing a childhood trauma specialist, somebody that was really digging into her childhood, which is really where all the wounds come from and really what was playing out. Over the next 4 months, we would devolve from, fairly good relationship to complete emotional chaos. It was just both of us were triggering our childhood wounds now. My fear of abandonment became very prevalent. That was from my own upbringing. It came from a very dysfunctional childhood myself, whereas my father was a battled addiction. My parents were divorced when I was born. My father was in and out of my childhood. So I developed a pretty bad, abandonment wound, if you will, from that. But anyway, over the next 4 months, this just trauma between the two of us was playing out. The emotions became so severe that she would actually seek a restraining order for her emotional safety against me. And at that point is when I figured this is over. I didn't know how to fix the relationship. I couldn't figure it out. At that point, I'd been trying to save the relationship. But at that point, it was obviously, it just felt like, okay, this is it. This is beyond anything I could understand. I didn't know how it was happening and how it was devolving into such a chaos, right? So I just accepted, hey, it's over. I need to move on, figure out my own life, and just pick up the pieces and accept it, which I began to do. And I was fortunate enough, I was seeing a therapist of my own, and I also came across what's called attachment theory, and then the integrated attachment theory program created by Thais Gibson out of Canada, which really began to give me some tools and some knowledge about what was really happening between us. And I could see a lot of the things that were going wrong and why we were having the struggles we were having, our inability to communicate properly, understanding boundaries, our certain behaviors were just off. All these things that really help us to have good relationships, we didn't really have those, and so those were the things we needed to kind of figure out. And so the next 4.5 months, when I wasn't able to communicate with her, I continued to do the work, and as she also continued to do a lot of her work and getting through the childhood trauma stuff, and ultimately the work that we would do would help us come back around and actually put the relationship back together in a way that is now 1,000 times healthier, 1,000 times better. We have tools now that help us navigate through the difficult times that you can have in relationships. And we have tools that we never had before. And that's the key. I always say there's nothing worse than losing the person you love simply because you don't have the tools necessary to keep them. And I think a lot of us just don't have the tools to actually keep and have good, healthy relationships. We haven't, haven't been shown that, and we haven't been taught those things. And so a lot of times we're just winging it, and we're looking at relationships through a really distorted, bad perspective, unhealthy perspective, if you will, based upon our own experiences. But those aren't proper, So it's been a journey for sure.
And so you mentioned that you guys both went to individual therapy when things started like blowing up, and then you guys were individually uncovering like different childhood wounds or different things, and then it made the relationship kind of worse until you learn these tools that were for actual relationships. I spoke with someone else who is like a spiritual healer for like women and their intuition, and she mentioned like a lot of times there's certain gurus and help where people are like, come find yourself, do ayahuasca or whatever. It doesn't have to be that, but like different things of like, go on your healing journey. And in those, people mistake the idea of having healthy boundaries as like, oh, I'm this really like as like, instead of taking accountability and ownership for their own part. So they'll be like, oh, I went on this spiritual journey. You're the problem because I just did all this work on myself. And I realized I need to set this boundary. And it's like, no, you were opened up to things that are painful and have to be worked through, but then you weren't given the tools on how to act, what to do about that once you learned about these deeper things.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like people get opened up, but then no tools on what to do with it. And then that can impact you just as a single person of like if you are opened up to all these childhood wounds and then there's no aftercare about it. But then thinking about if you're in a serious relationship or a marriage, going through these transformative experiences with no actual tools after is going to cause a rift, because every negative, sad, hurtful, traumatic thing is being brought to the surface. And it's like, I'm going to throw my trauma at you and you're going to throw it, and we're not in like doing anything together.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean that kind of what happened for her and I is, it did seem to add a little fuel to the fire almost in the beginning, because a lot of that was coming out, a lot of the childhood trauma that she was, having memories. She was remembering things from her childhood that she had forgotten so long ago, but that were really stuck in her psyche, if you will, and that were affecting the way she was looking at life and things in general. But at the same time, it wasn't necessarily at that point giving her the skills to navigate through them yet. It was bringing up the awareness, and that was great. But at the same time, at that point, she still don't have any skills yet. And so you just got to be careful. I think it's good to get the awareness. That's a start. That's a start, but you still have to then be, so it's like saying, hey, my car's breaking down, but I'm just going to continue to drive it without actually fixing it. Well, eventually it's still going to break down, right? So,
Right.
So it's good to know that the car's is not working properly, but then we have to say, okay, well, why is it not working properly? What tools do I need to grab? What parts do I need to grab here so I can fix this car, so I can keep this thing running at top level, right? So, and that's the thing. A lot of us, we're not mechanics. We don't know how to fix our car. If our car is breaking down, we start to panic. We start to think, well, maybe I just need to buy a new car, trade it in. And we think that new car is going to be, and maybe it is for a little while, but then eventually that new car breaks down too. And we still have the same problem because we don't have the tools necessary. We haven't figured out how to actually, do this stuff. We haven't figured out how to fix the relationship. We don't have the tools to fix the relationship. And so we just go from relationship to a relationship, and thinking the next one's going to be the perfect situation. And after a couple of years, whatever it might be, we end up in the same spot because, yeah, again, it just breaks down over time, and eventually we end up separated again, or broken up, or divorced, and now we have kids, and now we have other issues on top of that. So it just gets really complicated. But yeah, just because you went to a weekend retreat and got some awarenesses doesn't mean you're completely
Right. Awareness is
ready
like
to
the
go.
first start. I really like the car analogy
Yeah.
because it's like, okay, if I tell you your brakes are going out, your gut, like the next logical action would be like, okay, I need to get those fixed. I need to identify some mechanics. I need to
That's
see
right.
what my budget is. And you're going to take it easy on driving
Yeah.
while you're figuring that out. So why do we not apply the same thing to like
But
self-awareness?
think of it, if you are a mechanic and and you have the know-how and you have all the tools in your garage, do you panic? No, you're like, oh, I know exactly how to fix this. Bring the car back into the garage. I grab my tools. I whammy jammy. I fix the parts. And next, I'm off and running, feeling good again. Right. So
Mhm.
that's what, now in relationships, if we have the tools and we know how to navigate these experiences with our partner, we feel the same way. We feel pretty confident. Oh, we have a situation up here. I know exactly what to do. Come on in. Let's talk. Let's figure this out. Boom, boom, boom. We have to apply some tools, and we're off and running again. And everything is, in a good way. Right. So we're not sitting here with the underlying tension of nothing's been fixed. We still have the same old problems, and we're just waiting for the hammer to fall. And that's just not a healthy way to go about it. So yeah, it's just a different world when you finally know how to do this and navigate it in a more skilled way, and you just have a little bit more confidence on how to do it. And it's pretty awesome.
Mhm. Now, for you, how did your childhood show up in your marriage? So, like, what were some of the connections that you made? Like, this happened to me as a child, and then this
Oh
showed
yeah.
up in this way.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I had a big child abandonment wound issue, really, and I learned it it came really from my father. My parents were, my parents were 21 years old, 21 years old when I was born. My brother was already born. So my mom was 21 years old in 1969 with two boys, my father was battling addiction. And so they were divorced pretty much, a couple months after I was born. And my father would be in and out of my childhood. So he would come in, I'd get close to my dad. I was always a daddy's boy, even though my dad was a mess, right? I still love my dad. He'd come into my life, and then he'd be gone, and he'd come in and be gone. So it was repetition. It was this, you get close to him and then he'd be gone, close to him, be gone. And all that abandonment stuff came out big time for me. Also, again, not good enough, fear of being alone, all these other issues, all these other subconscious things. And then we moved around a lot in my first 10 years of my childhood. So there was just a lot of chaos, a lot of turmoil, a lot of instability. And as a little boy, I was learning from looking up at my parents, who were also just young adults trying to figure out their own lives. And had their own issues from their own dysfunctional childhoods. They both came from their own fairly dysfunctional childhood. So it was just a mess. And so as I became an adult myself, all these little wounds and all this perspective that I had about relationships and myself, in relation to those things, really began to play out. And I just didn't have confidence. I didn't know how to, do these things. I didn't know how to communicate properly. All the fear of abandonment, being alone was a big one, right? And so, if I finally learned how to have a relationship, if you were breaking up with me, I was distraught, man. I'd be like a mess. I mean, like just a complete emotional mess. Like couldn't even eat for 2 weeks. Times where I was just completely dysfunctional, wanted to die. I was actually suicidal at one point, where I just didn't know how to navigate life, right? I just thought, man, I don't know how to do this anymore. I'm exhausted. And but little by little, thank God, by the grace of God, I didn't do that. And thank God I began to get answers, and things, began to get better. And it just took more time and some healing and everything else. But yeah, and it's taken 56, 57 years now of learning these things, to get to this point. I wish they had this information more at my fingertips when I was younger, right? I wish I was, at 18, I could jump online and take some courses and jump on some webinars like this and learn. But back in the day, we were lucky if you had a book come out once every 5 or 10 years that people would talk about. Oh, you got to check out this book, and it was like, okay, But there's definitely there's a lot of challenges today, but there's also a lot of information, I think, today that can also help move the needle for people who are trying to figure this out. But for me and my wife, she came from a very dysfunctional childhood too, as more of a military type childhood. But her father was very abusive. Her mom had her own issues, and same thing, just years of abuse and years of neglect and everything else that just led to her own issues. And so together, here we are trying to fix this stuff and figure out life. And we just carry all that childhood trauma and that perspectives that we had about relationships into the relationship that we had together. and they're not proper. They're just off, and yeah, just very unhealthy way to do it. And so, yeah, just take some time in healing, but that's kind of the idea of where we started.
Yeah, and,
Yeah.
like, you both kinda came from broken households and found each other. Do you think that, like, part of, like, your initial, like, getting together was a result of understanding each other from having, um, like, traumatic childhood experiences?
Yeah, subconsciously, probably. I mean, consciously, I just thought she was pretty and fun. We had a good time together. We always had a lot of laughs. Like, so on the surface, it was all that positive stuff that you're looking for, and everything seemed to be pretty good. And so we just had a lot of fun, a lot of good times. I think subconsciously, though, there was probably those little things subconsciously that I saw about her that I was looking for, and the same thing. Like, I think subconsciously she was looking for somebody, to kind of complete us, right? But we should be completed on our own. But it's that side of us that we're lacking sometimes that we're attracted to the other side, because I may not have that type of way of coping mechanisms. And so or certain way of doing things, but I find that attractive because that's something I lack. And vice versa. So sometimes we choose our partners because of those things, right? We lack this in myself. So I find it in the partner, so that together we seem to be stronger. Let's just say, for survival purposes, it seems like we're going to be better because we now kind of have that bond together. We kind of help each other. We fill those, I'm filling the parts that she lacks and she's filling the parts that I lack, right? So together we should be get better. But at the end of that, it's not healthy, and ultimately it doesn't work out that way either. So we both want to come in strong and healthy and really good mindset. But I think the subconscious is the key, because I don't think we even realize 99% of the time we don't understand what we're doing. We're making these decisions subconsciously because of those wounds, because of the perspective, things that we've grown up with, and we just think that that's normal. And
Mhm.
we get involved and we go through these situations and we think that this is just kind of the way you do it and kind of handle it. But then we realize after time, it doesn't seem to be working. And so that if you're struggling like that, then we have to ask yourself, okay, why is it not working? There's probably something that I'm doing wrong. There must be a better way to do this. And there is
Mhm.
better ways to doing these things. It's just that if we, again, have been taught those things, we just don't know any better, and we just keep trying our asses off to the point where it hurts, and we end up with breakups and heartache, and yeah, choosing the wrong person, but then falling in love, and then sometimes it's the right person. It's just that we don't have the tools. So if I don't have the tools, I can be with a great person, but ultimately it doesn't work out because we continue to have death by a thousand paper cuts, all these little fights, all these little issues, ultimately end up destroying the relationship. So nothing's easy here, but yeah.
So, you know the phrase that everyone says, like, "Oh, opposites attract,"
Hmm.
and I feel like that's what you were kinda saying, like, with the subconscious of, like, there were certain things that you felt, like, subconsciously that you lacked and that she had, and you're like, "Okay, together as a survival mechanism, this should work out." Why do you feel like that's not actually healthy? Because
Because
logically, it sounds like when I
yeah,
think about it, I'm like, "Oh, yeah, opposites should attract because then you complement each other and here we go." So,
yeah.
what's the reality of that?
Yeah, but a lot of times it's just those wounds that are, kind of keeping us together rather than actually true love and actually choosing each other from a healthy, strong point. So yeah, it's like the sinking ship. Okay, sure, I might be sinking. I'm going to hold on to, whatever I can to kind of keep the ship afloat. But at the end of the day, wouldn't I rather have a boat that isn't sinking in the first place? So that's where I want to get to. I want to get to where, I'm healthy, happy. I don't need to have a person in my life per se, but I choose to have that person in my life, right? I'm going to choose it because
Mhm.
I'm okay on my own. Okay. I'm okay to share my emotions. Sometimes, some people have a hard time sharing emotions. Well, you have to learn, maybe it's safe to share your emotions. It's okay to do that. How do we do that in a healthy way that's proper, so that we can really work on these connections, so that we're, in a relationship together, we're feeling connected. We're actually operating from a point of strength, and not this sinking ship that, oh, we're just here to help each other survive and trudge through that. Well, that's not really something that's exciting in the long run. At the end of the day, you have two sinking ships that ultimately sink, instead of being able to say, yeah, wait a second, let's repair the boat so that there are no holes in it, that the ship isn't sinking at all in the first place. And now when we enter that relationship, we choose each other, purely out of love. And that's where my wife and I are today. We choose each other. My wife can walk out of this house today. That's her option, right? She owes me nothing. She can choose to leave. But she chooses me and I choose her every day, because we love each other. We communicate well. We know how to kind of handle situations. We have a great relationship. And that's the whole point, is to keep the relationship so healthy, so good, so vibrant, that you don't want to leave. You want to stay in this thing. And it's exciting every day. It feels good to be in this relationship, not just, Even if you were to stay together for 20 years, but it was mediocre, is that something you want to? Like, no. So yeah, you want something that's actually healthy, exciting, good. But yeah, sometimes we choose that partner just because of our own subconscious wounds, trying to complete ourselves. And but yeah, in the long run, it's really not healthy.
So you told me about the 6 pillars of tools that you learned in the program that you completed and now help others with that changed your relationship. Um, could we get into a high level of like each tool and like what that might look like in a relationship?
Yeah, I mean, we can certainly talk about the 6 pillars. I'd be happy to give you an overview of what that's like and what that might look like, so you can get a pretty good sense of it if you're in it yourself. For sure. Yeah, that's my favorite part.
Yeah, okay. So what do the pillars, are they going in, do they go in order, or is there one that you have to like address first before you can address the second, or is it
Yep.
like
Yes and no. So no, not necessarily. So there are 6 pillars. Let's talk about those first. I'll give you an idea. The 6 pillars are this. Number one, you have your core wounds. Those are the subconscious thoughts that we have and beliefs that we have about ourselves. So again, my fear of abandonment, fear that I'm not good enough, fear that I'm going to be alone, fear I'm going to be trapped, fear I'm broken. All these different types of wounds that are, again, subconsciously we're playing out. Those are huge. Those to me are the foundation of the program, because we have to get in there and really start to understand and fix those core wounds that are operating. They're driving the train, if you will, and it's on automatic pilot, and that pilot is driving it into a wreckage, right? So we have to change those subconscious thoughts. So subconscious wounds, number one. Number two, we have our needs. We have to really truly understand, what do I truly need in life, and then number one, understand what the needs are, but then also learn how to fill those on my own. So when I learn how to fill my own needs, I'm not needing somebody else in my life. I don't have to have anybody else in my life to feel complete and feel good, right? I know I can do it on my own. I feel good. I don't want to outsource those. Number three is our behavior. Excuse me, our emotions. Okay, emotions. How do I gain emotional control? How do I understand my emotions? There's nothing wrong with emotions at all. We have to learn that emotions are good. They're warning signals. They're information for us, on a good side or a bad. So if I'm feeling angry, or if I'm feeling hurt, I'm feeling sad, I just have to ask myself, why am I feeling sad? What is a thought, belief that I'm having that's causing me to feel this way? Whether that's a good one or a bad one, right? So if I'm happy, well, why am I happy? What's making me feel so happy here? And then we can kind of learn from that, and really grow. And then again, learn how to control the emotions, so that eventually we're not, getting so triggered over some of the small things we shouldn't be getting triggered about. And then number four is our boundaries. How do we set healthy, good boundaries in life? I always say the boundaries are like the fence that protect the house, and we're the house. So how do I set boundaries that actually protect me, and teach people how to, how I'm hoping to be treated and such. And so that's important to do, and a lot of us don't know how to do that properly. Number five is communication. How do we communicate, again, in a way that actually moves the needle? We're not yelling at each other. We're not talking in ways that are, we're both kind of defending ourselves, defending our position. How do we communicate in a way where we can both hear each other, understand each other, begin to comprehend, and begin to actually now problem solve with that information? Whereas in the past, a lot of times my wife and I, we would communicate we were just defending our own point of view, and staying unhealthy in that regard, never moved the needle. So it became more fights than it would actually be healthy, right? So, and then last but not least is our behaviors. How do I change my behavior and begin to operate in a way on a daily basis that actually, is becoming of a man, and actually, somebody can look on and say, wow, this guy knows how to handle himself. And he is somebody that seems like he's got it together. And then again, those behaviors are healthier behaviors, and ways that I'm doing things that are actually, again, more beneficial than they are detrimental. So when I change all 6 of those things, it's a game changer. But I like those because for me, I can look at all 6 and say, okay, I can do a little bit better here. I can do a little bit better there. I can, maybe I'm doing better on my communication, but I forgot to set some boundaries this week. Okay. Maybe I'm working on setting some boundaries, but then I forgot, my behavior was terrible yesterday. Maybe I need to change that. Or, maybe I lost control a little bit. Maybe I got a little emotional yesterday when I really, wondering why did I get so triggered yesterday? I got to think about that. So I just have these little things that I can begin to look at and think about, and begin to change, and get some new ways of doing those things that actually begin to move the needle, and truly make a difference. I think when we begin to do all those together, then it really starts to move the needle.
Mhm. That makes sense. So then how does those are the 6 tool pillars. that you can use to kind of frame how you approach things.
Yeah.
But then for your actual attachment style, how does that impact how you approach those pillars?
Yeah, so I mean, different attachment styles will attack it a little bit differently, but the key with that is, to me, the attachment style isn't as important as learning the core wounds itself. What are my core wounds? So whether my attachment style is anxious, whether my attachment style is a little bit more dismissive or fearful, avoidant, that's not as important as what are the core wounds that are actually driving the train. Now, dismissives may handle this program a little bit slower, a little bit differently. They may not attack it as much in the beginning, right? Whereas an anxious, preoccupied, or even a fearful avoidant, sometimes they're happy to jump right in on this stuff. Maybe grab the reins a little bit sooner than the other attachment style might. But at the end of the day, it's just about recognizing the wounds, what is playing out here, and then where do I lack? Where am I struggling? So if I'm a dismissive avoidant, they usually have a hard time getting in touch with their emotions at all. That's something that they really struggle with. And then if they do feel emotions at all, the emotions are bad. They're really, negative, and we shouldn't feel them at all. And then they isolate. They really isolate with their feelings because, that's not something you want to share at all. So so that's just something that they have to learn to overcome and be able to be okay with their feelings and realize that it's okay to share my feelings too. Like, that's interesting. Like, I don't have to isolate and hide in my room, if you will, and keep this all to myself. I can actually come out of my shell and share this with the right partner, and somebody's not going to criticize me and be hurtful on that. They're going to kind of accept me for that more. And it's actually a good thing to do that. So there's so many variations to that question. It's kind of hard to answer in one thing, but they definitely at the end of the day come back to more, what are the core wounds, and then how do I begin to attack that for myself? Yeah. And then every week is different. Sometimes you'll find this week I'm doing better on, again, my communication, but you know what, maybe I need to figure out a little bit better on what my true needs are, and then maybe I need to do a little workbook and a little study or something on that to uncover those a little bit. But yeah, it's just a little bit here, a little bit there.
It's interesting because, so like, do you think people's attachment styles can change as they go through the course?
Yes, 100%. So that is a thing. All of our attachment styles were learned behavior. These are things that we've developed mostly through our childhood. And we picked these up in life. We weren't born with this attachment style. We just developed these wounds and these coping mechanisms that kind of helped us get survive, if you will. But now, and they did help us survive as children, and as we got through these things, they helped us survive. But at the end of the day, now as adults, we're still implementing that thought patterns, and they're not helping us survive. They're actually destroying what we are trying to build here. But yeah, we can absolutely move from the unhealthy attachment styles into a very secure attachment style. Learning how to, again, communicate better, balance our emotions, all those things. It's all just learned. So when we learn the unhealthy ways, now we just have to learn the healthy ways, and we absolutely can move from the unhealthy attachment styles to the healthy, attachment style. Yeah, that's the good news.
Yeah. So if I thinking about like people being ready to do a program or even open to understanding their attachment style, which is very, like you said, kind of basic because it's really going through the pillars. So like, for example, you mentioned a dismissive avoidant. It's like they don't want to talk about or feel the emotions at all. If they feel emotion, they're going to isolate. One of my best friends is like that. I'm going to him after this. But like, how would, if you're dating one of those, or you kind of are dismissive avoidant, and you're like, yeah, that's me. I don't like talking about emotions. I don't like feeling them. And I think this is working just fine. What would you say to encourage somebody like that who's like, yeah, well, it's working out?
Yeah, I mean, sometimes it works out temporarily, but that's the thing. Is it really working out? Is it really the optimal? First of all, even if you are having a relationship and you're able to stay in one for any length of time, is it really optimal? Is that relationship and the connection you have with your person, is that really the best it can be? Or is it just kind of like, oh yeah, we're getting through, we're getting by, this is serving me, but is it really kind of blessing me? Is it really kind of taking me to the next level where I feel completed? And sometimes we don't know. And yeah, unfortunately for dismissive avoidant, sometimes it takes a breakup. Sometimes it takes some pain. It takes some awareness where they lose somebody because they didn't open up and share emotionally, or they did detach too much, or their communication style was so unhealthy. Yeah, because a lot of times dismissive avoidance, they communicate with their actions, and they don't know how to communicate verbally as much. And so they think you're supposed to understand that, but of course we don't. And so eventually, a lot of times, if you really have those issues, in the long run, it ends up being a bad situation and breaking up. And I know people have been married for 20, 30 years and sometimes end up divorced later in life. So now you're 56 years old, you've been with the person for 30 years, and now you're finding yourself single and trying to figure this out in your 50s and 60s. And it's like, really, did that serve you? How well did that serve you? Like at the end of the day,
Yeah,
like, yeah,
because it kind of was like a maintenance thing. Like
yeah,
it's maintained, but it's like at some point, even if it
right.
was years and years later, there was a boiling point.
That's right. And that's a lot of times what does happen later in life. A lot of times those wounds and those things do play out, and they do come out later in life because you can only deal with that for so long before it eventually bubbles over, if you will. So those wounds that you don't deal with early on tend to fester, just like anything else. If I had a wound on my arm and I just let it go, and it just got worse and worse and worse, never paid attention to it. Eventually, my arm's in trouble. Yeah, I got some big situation going on. So, and that's sometimes what happens. Same thing on the emotional side, is we don't deal with it. We just kind of think it's fine and we get by with it, but it's not optimal and it's really not working. And if you could do the work and have your situation be 1,000 times better than what it is, even if you're somewhat happy with the person you're with now, like wouldn't you say, yeah, I'd rather have my relationship, on steroids and have it like 1,000 times better? Wouldn't that be great? Like, why not? So I think it's just a matter of like learning what our wounds are, kind of looking at it. I love looking at the attachment styles. I always challenge everybody, go watch a video by Thais Gibson, Thais Gibson, Gibson, on the Mel Robbins podcast on YouTube. It's about an hour and 15 minutes. She does a great job of explaining the 4 different attachment styles. And I promise you at the end of that, hour and 50 minutes, you're going to hear your side. You're going to recognize yourself in one of those attachment styles. You're probably going to recognize your spouse in one of those. And then from there, if you decide you want to continue to learn about this stuff, then yeah, you can certainly learn, like I did, continue to apply yourself, and we can talk about what to do on that. But yeah, start there, learn what the attachment styles are, learn what some of these wounds are, and then see where you fall in that, and then decide, hey, for yourself, do you really want to stay stuck there? If you do, sometimes you do. But guess what? If my partner outgrows me and they start doing the work and then I just fall behind, my partner may leave me because they can only deal with that for so long. Right. And so eventually sometimes, yeah, it only serves us for so long, and then it eventually kind of bites us in the butt,
Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree. I think at some point there has to be a reckoning. That's how life
Yep.
works. I
Yep.
think at some point. I just think that's like, I don't know, almost like karmic, not in a way of like you did this bad thing, so you deserve this, but just like the
Yeah.
cycle of
It's
life.
just the way it works out. That's right. And the thing is this, real quick, I just want to say, that's not to punish you. That's to bless you. It's really
Yeah.
to get you, everything that happened to my wife and I was a blessing because it really kept us from staying in a mediocre relationship. It's allowed us to grow. It's allowed us to learn. And now on the flip side, from the learning, from that experience, we're now being blessed. We have something fantastic from that. So you'd rather kind of learn this stuff early on in your life. If you're a teenager, early 20s or something like that, man, learn it now. Don't wait 30 years and be stubborn and say, oh, no, I don't need to look at myself. And then 30 years later, you end up, with kids, and now you're divorced and you're dealing with all that. Like, that's awful. That is just awful. Like, you can save yourself a lot of trouble and a lot of problems and have a lot more joy and passion and fun along the way, just by learning how to do this sooner rather than later. So, but if you are later in life, hey, it's never too soon to start either, but yeah, sooner the better.
Mhm. Now, I know a lot of people, some people listening may be attracting the same relationship in a different body. Like
Yeah.
they're dating different people. They're like, I don't know what it is. Like every person I date, this thing happens, and then all men or all women,
Yep.
blah blah blah. What does the 6 pillars and like attachment theory say about helping them like finally understand that? Would it be the core wounds, or like what would kind of be the first step to them understanding why they're dating the same person in
Yeah,
different?
yeah, absolutely. The core wounds is definitely a big one to understand, and then yeah, I would say that's probably the main one. But all of the understanding it all together, you can start to look at that big picture. But yeah, certainly your core wounds are a big factor. When you start to see like, oh yeah, I do have this type of wound. I do see the way I communicate is this, or again, I may be like, for me, it's a fear of abandonment. So maybe I'm being too aggressive in a relationship. Maybe I'm too connected. Maybe I'm actually over pursuing. I'm doing things again that are not attractive, that ultimately push that person away. So if you're anxious, preoccupied, and you're calling your spouse 10 times a day, and they're like, honey, I'm at work, and you leave me alone, like, at some point it gets to a point where we're like, yeah, it doesn't work. And it's like, this doesn't work. It's not a healthy way to do it. Even if you get by with it for a period of time, ultimately that ends to a lot more frustration and breakdowns and fights and possibly eventually a breakup.
Mhm.
Because at some point it just doesn't work. It's like, again, death by 1,000 paper cuts. It's okay in the beginning, but over time, after you're draining now after 10 years of this, I just can't do it anymore because nothing's changing. You're the same. We're still kind of dealing with all these problems. And all of a sudden it's like the relationship is over and you think it just happened overnight. It really didn't happen overnight. It happened over a period of time because we haven't learned these lessons and how to figure it out and do it actually healthier and better. And then, yeah, we end up just bouncing to the next person thinking it's the next person that's the difference, right? Oh, I must be with the wrong person. It must be the wrong person. That's the whole thing. I didn't choose the right person. No, it's not that. It's that you haven't figured out the skills necessary to actually have a good relationship. And when you accept that fact, that's when we can really start doing the work and start to really see healthy, good people come into your life. And then, you won't be attracted to those people who aren't somewhat at your level. Right. And now you're, with all these new skills, you're going to find somebody else who also knows how to communicate, who also knows how to set some healthy boundaries, who also has some of the skills with you. So now you're going, wait a second, now we can practice these things together. And boy, does this work great. You know what I mean? Because you can only carry somebody else for so long. That becomes tough too. So, but yeah.
Yeah, and I think the big thing that when I was like kind of preparing to speak with you, I was like, your ex really can be your next, because people always talk about
Yeah.
like, oh, it's toxic. And what's toxic is if you circle back to that person and neither one of y'all have done
Yeah.
work. Even
Yeah.
if it wasn't these tools, like they didn't know they were using these tools. I'm sure there's people who've like come back together in a healthy relationship and ended up kind of doing these tools, not maybe realizing. But like, it's not that it's toxic to go back to an relationship that you had before. It's that it's toxic to go back doing the same exact things,
Yeah.
having the same exact awareness without any learning or new tools. But like, it's not actually toxic to go back into the same relationship. It's not always that you need to find a new person. A lot of the times it's not that you need,
Yeah.
I don't know, that's kind of been like my perspective shift in speaking with you, is like, it's not really that we're not a good match. It's
Yeah.
that one or both of us is not doing the work.
Yeah. I
Of
love
course,
that.
there's cases, right? Like there's cases where people aren't a good match. If I
Oh
want to have
yeah.
kids and my partner doesn't want to have kids, of course, obviously there's
Yeah.
cases. I'm not dismissing that.
Right.
But those things aside, it's like, if I keep dating similar people and keep having the same result, it really comes about that like one or both of us was not doing the work that we should have done.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's kind of funny because I'm like, yeah, like I kind of advocate for like, you could go back to your ex. You could go back.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily a bad thing.
No, I love that. Your ex could be your next. I think that's a great line. I always, my other thing is they call it a breakup, not a breakdown. So we are going to level up from this breakup. So this time away, if it's used properly, we are going to level up from this. We are going to learn some new skills. We are going to figure out how to do things better. And we are either going to attract a new partner that's going to match us there, or our old partner, if they are also doing some of the work, can also come and meet us here. And now together, and that's what my wife and I did. We were both able to level up from this. And now our new skills, our new awarenesses, we now are able to come back and have a healthier, happier relationship. Now, I always say this, though, if I had done the work and she didn't do the work, then I may not have wanted her to come back and it may have not have worked, or vice versa. If she had done the work and I didn't do the work, then yeah, that may not have worked and she may have moved on to somebody better and I would be stuck here in that low vibe. If neither one of us did the work, we might have still gotten back together, but we probably would have ended up in the same problems with the same situations, same stresses, and nothing would have improved. And we'd be back in the same area, same situation a couple of years later, right? Now, but because both of us did the work, at least I did the work, that's the only thing I'm in control of. I have to focus on me and say, okay, I'm going to do the work. If I'm lucky enough to have my partner also do some work, then absolutely our ex can be our next. And we never know what's going to happen with that. We don't know if they're going to come back into our life. We don't know if we're going to be able to kind of move forward with that. But I promise you, we know if we don't do the work, then nothing good really
If
comes
you
of that.
don't, I
Yeah,
know what I can
that's
guarantee
right.
what's out there.
That's
But
right.
I
Nothing
like
good
that
comes of that.
phrase. The
Yeah.
breakup is a breakup, not a breakdown. Because
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of times, like people in relationships take breaks, right? Like it's
Yeah.
always a thing, oh, we're taking a break or we're breaking up for now. But it's like, what's happening in the in between time? You think just because you read a couple books here and there, or you started doing a little bit of journaling, and now you have awareness that now you come back different people. It's like, no, the awareness is not enough.
It's a good start. Like, listen, I love that. If you, you know, if you're taking that time and you're reading some books and you're doing some journaling and you are doing that work and you are getting some new awarenesses, that is a great start. But it is sometimes just the
Start.
start of it, right? So,
Yeah, and I
that's
think
not
people
always
like are like,
the
oh, I have all this awareness.
right. Yeah, that's
Let's
a
put
great
it
start.
together.
Yeah, but you still have to have those skills. Again, it's like saying, I know the car is broken, but I still don't know how to fix it or repair it. Now we have to get the skills to learn how to actually fix it and repair it. And then like, oh, okay. Once I learn those skills a little bit more, now I'm not worried about any, now I know how to navigate this thing pretty easily. So yeah, I love that though. Here, the awareness is the start of it though. Yeah.
Okay, I have a couple final questions for
Yeah.
you. One is, what do you say to like people who kind of tie attachment styles and like relationship outcomes to astrology signs? Like, oh, well, we didn't work out because I'm a Cancer,
Yeah.
and
Yeah. Yeah.
like, oh,
Yeah.
I'm a Gemini, and Geminis, they normally have the dismissive avoidance style. So
Yeah. Yeah, I don't go with that at all. I mean, I don't care. To me, you know, I'm sure there's some truth in that because of studies and people have kind of looked at this for thousands of years. But essentially, no, I truly believe the only reason our relationship breaks up is because we're not compatible. Number one, or number two, we just don't have the skills necessary. So even if we are really compatible and we do have something great, if we don't have the skills, then ultimately it ends. Whether I'm a Gemini and you're a Scorpio or anything like that, it doesn't matter. If the love is there, but we still can't make it work, it's because we don't have the skills. And that's the key. We don't, most of us just don't have the skills, you know, unless you're very fortunate to have come up and been raised in a family that, and you're able to in your early life, you have those skills. God bless you. That's fantastic. But I would say probably 80%, maybe 90% of us don't fall in that category. Most of us are struggling and we don't have the tools. We don't have the skills. And until we get those skills, it doesn't matter what your sign is. It's still going to be a problem.
mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love the astrology stuff. It's like fun lore. Like to be like, oh, it's because of this, but like
Yeah.
on a surface level, because
Yeah. Again, it's almost a
fun.
cop out though.
It's a
It's
cop
now it's
out.
not
Yeah.
blaming the other person. It's blaming astrology. It's like, well, it's because of that.
Mhm.
No, at the end of the day, it comes back to us. We have to take ownership. It comes
Exactly.
back to us.
It's like if you're really serious about like wanting to do the work, you will move past whatever
Absolutely.
the signs are. Um,
Absolutely.
and then my last question is, um, as we shift into a new year, 2026, people are starting to evaluate, do inventories of their life, the people in their life, habits. What is like one piece of hope that you would say to someone who may be single? Like, there's no good men out there, there's no good women out there, or I keep dating the same person, or I'm struggling in my relationship right now. What piece of hope or wisdom would you leave them with?
Yeah, I'd say there's definitely hope, and I think that's funny because I find good people all the time. Like it's just to me, they're everywhere. I think they're out there, but I think we attract what we kind of are ourselves a little bit. So sometimes if we're not attracting quality, then we have to look at ourselves and why am I not attracting quality? Because I truly believe they're out there. And yeah, there is hope. I think I don't care where you are in your life. I don't care how broken you feel. I don't care what your relationship looks like. I don't care if you're single right now or you're in a broken relationship or you're in the middle of a breakup or any of that stuff. 2026 is going to be what you make of it and how much you actually apply yourself and you're willing to humble yourself and change if need be. You know, if you're not if you're not in an optimal spot, okay, how do we humble ourselves? How do we, you know, open our minds and our ears a little bit to listen and make some changes that are actually going to move the needle? And I'm a relationship guy, so for me, it's if it's in the relationship realm, what are you willing to do this year to actually have a healthy, good relationship? Are you willing to do some work? Or are you just hoping for the best? Are you just going to the same local bar, the same local spots, the same thing, and running into the same people and saying, yeah, there's nothing else out there. It's all that negative. Okay. Or are you open to trying something new? Are you willing to maybe go to new, healthier spots where maybe some people with better mindsets are there? Maybe you have an interest in art, maybe, or something. I don't know, something that you really enjoy doing. Maybe spend more time in that, and you'll find somebody that's also interested in the same type of thing in a healthier mindset. But at the end of the day, it's all about doing the work. What are you willing to do? What are you willing to change to actually make 2026 the best year you've ever had? And so, yeah, just take it a day at a time, and just be willing to do some stuff to change, and you'll see what 2026 can bring. I think it can be an awesome year. I always find, yeah, I always find there's so many good people out there. I think that's a lie. I laugh at that because I find good people everywhere I go. I'm not saying that I'm completely compatible with everyone or anything like that, but I just think there's really wonderful people. There's beautiful people out there. There's lots of pretty women. There's lots of handsome guys out there. A few ladies, like, they're out there, and they're waiting to meet people. I think so many of us are lonely, and so many people want to meet healthy, good people, right? Why are we struggling so much? Why is there so much loneliness? Everybody, like, we're lonely because we don't know how to do this. We don't have the skills. So let's go get some skills. Let's figure this out. Let's stop playing on Tinder, and let's start, let's get to some places that are real, and start, meeting some real good things, and yeah, put yourself in a better position. Where are the good people hanging out a little bit too? Like, yeah, that's something to think about. Where are you hanging out that maybe can change that spot? If I'm hanging out in bars where there's, and I'm not saying you can't meet somebody in a bar, right? That's not, I want you to make, I'm not against meeting somebody at any bar, any place. I think you can meet somebody at a church, you can meet them at a bar, you can meet them at a supermarket, you can meet them anywhere. It's just being open and ready for that experience. But sometimes, yeah, you may find more quality people in certain situations and places. So, but yeah, it's not easy, but be willing to do whatever it takes. That's my opinion.
I love that. So if someone's looking to learn more about your journey, work with you, where can they find you? I'll also include it in links in the episode description, but any quick, like, this is what I want to say, people can find me here.
Yeah, please. I'd love to help people with this stuff. So if you're struggling with this at all, feel free to reach out to me. I'd love to connect with you. Go to my website, myrelationshipfail.com. And you can take my attachment style quiz right there. It's completely free. Sign up. You can do that. You can learn your attachment style within the next few minutes, and then sign up and get a free session with me. I'll be happy to give you a free strategy consultation, free relationship strategy session. And we can talk about where you're at, what's going on, and how can we move the needle to help you have a great 2026. And then if you decide beyond that, if you want to work and learn this integrated attachment theory program, you can join the personal development school through my website. That is Tice Gibson School. You can join that through my website. I'll also give you an additional strategy session when you do that as well, so we can kind of point you in the right direction there. And if you want steady coaching beyond that, we can talk about how we can continue to work together just to move the needle faster. So you're welcome to go at this on your own a little bit if you want to just do those couple of things. But if you need additional help, I offer my services up as a coach. I'd be happy to give you, some time, and let's see what we can do to get you into a great spot for 2026. But yeah, find me on myrelationshipfail.com.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for coming, giving your honest answers, being vulnerable about your own relationship fails. And I hope that someone listening changes their perspective on how to approach their relationships in the new year.
I hope so too. Thanks so much for having me on the show today. It was a pleasure. Thank you.
Bye, everyone.